Pocketcat has a deep secret, deeper than his pockets. You may think his presence in the first game doesn't cause anything, but what you don't know is that he was almost able to cause the death of all the 4 poor wanderers that entered into the dungeon of fear and hunger, almost without moving a single inch. This is the Pocketcat Neverending Nightmare Theory. It's funny to think that this theory started because of a question someone asked me, that was almost surely intended to be a joke, but thinking about it more and more, I was able to find more and more evidences that fit together, creating a perfect logic. But I think we can start talking about the Pocketcat. For those that don't know, he is a servant of the trickster moon god, Rare. His duty in the dungeon is to prevent the girl from reaching the altar of darkness and transforming into the god of fear and hunger. And he is probably a reference to the boogeyman, usually present in the children fairy tales, with the purpose of making them behave better. And that's exactly where our theory starts, from the book called The Tale of the Pocketcat. The first chapter of this book is just one of those fairy tales I just told about, but in the second book, there are some weird things that start to happen. The Pocketcat in the book will literally stare at us. And if that doesn't seem weird enough, he will also ask us how to handle the situation now that we saw something we shouldn't have. At this point, we will be able to choose how does the story finish in the book itself. What? What type of book is this? And then, if you try to read it again, the pages are just gonna be sticked together and you can't choose anymore. I wanted to talk about this moment because this can be considered the first moment in which we see Pocketcat breaking the fourth wall. He is aware of the one that is maneuvering everything. Us, the player. We are the one who is reading the book, and he doesn't miss the occasion of being able to stare at us and have a little dialogue. And this isn't the only moment in which he is able to do so. If we go in the first encounter in Fear and Hunger Termina, he will note how he thinks to have already seen us. Of course, it's impossible for him to have seen all the different contestants that may meet him. He is clearly talking about us, about our first encounter in the dungeon of fear and hunger. I think at this point we can establish one thing. Pocketcat is aware of the player and is able to create ways to talk to the player itself, such as the book. And to an extent, this can also be applied to the weird status effect that we can obtain while talking to him in the mines. It doesn't matter if we get happiness or depression. It does literally nothing. It's just a way of the Pocketcat to say, "Oh, hello there." Now that we made all these examples of Pocketcat being able to break the fourth wall, I think it's time to finally address the elephant in the room. There is one place in the game, which may just seem as a joke and nothing more, just a funny addition to have fun and talk more calmly with all the characters. One place, or better, one difficulty. I'm of course talking about Dungeon Knights. For those of you that don't know, Dungeon Knights is the 4th difficulty mode available only if you call your main character schoolgirl, schoolboy or schoolkid. And it takes place in, apparently, the city of Rondon itself. And it's nothing more than a simple, funny dating simulator mode where you can interact with your favorite characters from the dungeon and relax. Or at least, that's what you've thought up to this moment. Let me start with a simple question about this mode. Doesn't something seem off? Let me explain what I mean. Both in the Rondon and in the dungeon of this mode, there are funny and chill soundtracks, but for some reason, once you enter in battle with an enemy, the fun stops suddenly, and all you can hear is your own breath in front of a gigantic monster. Isn't that kinda weird? If this really wanted to be just a funny mode, you would expect a similar tone everywhere, or maybe... what if it's all just a facade? Let me try to remove the music from Rondon for a second, okay? Doesn't this resemble the atmosphere of another place we know? Don't you feel some tension? But for those of you that don't, I can't blame you. After all, we never saw Rondon, so maybe this is the normal atmosphere in there. Except that we do see Rondon in a dream. And in that same dream, we're able to have a little bit of backstory of all characters, but nothing too special. Oh, and also there is Pocketcat. Pocketcat? What the hell is he doing here? In the same place used for dungeon nights, in which I remind you, he is the principal. Let me repeat. He appears almost randomly in the Dream of Rondon, and in dungeon nights, he is the literal principal of the main school. But let's take a step back, okay? You may say that this is just a dream, and it doesn't make sense to take this as a piece of evidence, right? Well, not only the concept of dream is debatable, and we are gonna discuss it soon, but as you may know, Pocketcat is a servant of the moon god, which is deeply connected to the dream realm. In Termina, every time you sleep, you end up in this weird realm where you can actually talk with an entity called Perkele and even catch a glimpse of the moon god in the distance. We can't consider this a simple coincidence. You may think the dream was created by Nilvan to talk to us, but her power is a little bit different. She is able to easily access all the people's dreams whenever she wants and wherever she wants. And also, it wouldn't make sense for her to place Pocketcat in her own created dream. This was clearly schemed by an entity possessing moon god power, and I think you may already understand where I'm going with this. Pocketcat used the Dream Realm to create Dungeon Nights and block us there to prevent the girl from becoming the god of fear and hunger. Nah, I mean, that sounds crazy. In Dungeon Nights, he's pretty chill. If he really did something similar, you would expect him trying to break the fourth wall in some way to play with the player. And even though there is the fact that you can't even try to talk about the Moon God with Najra or he will get mad, or even though in this office there are multiple fairy tales books with marked parts that could clearly be the decisions took from us in the Tale of the Pocketcat book, it's still a big stretch. He never addresses the possibility of us being in a dream. Look, he's just having normal class with his students. He's talking about depression.
The word comes from the term depressed of the mind.
Depressed of the mind? And you just made that up?
But it sounds fitting, right? But the sleep might end up way too long.
Oh. There is no need to hide it anymore. We are stuck inside of the dream realm with Pocketcat ever watching us. But there is another question we can have now. Is everyone present here real? The reason I'm addressing this is that all the four main characters have their real personalities. Kahara is arrogant, Enki is cynic, Rag is wise and fight-dependent. Darcy loves Legard, but she also mentions her monastery, so she has another clue. Girl is also very reserved, and Moonless and Girl are inseparable. But some characters tend to act in a weird way. The Legard you interact with isn't even a knight, and something about him seems, off. But let's try to talk about this to Principal Pocketcat. Maybe he can explain the... Is that... Legard? Pocketcat literally imprisoned the real Legard in his own office, and the one present with us in class is just a mindless puppet that adds to the school setting and makes us lose attention from our mission. And Legard isn't the only one. Other characters are completely crazy. Nilvan is just an animal lover that barely says anything, considering she always starts losing herself in her thoughts, and Chambara literally doesn't talk. He just looks at art because he loves art and information available to everyone in the Fellowship book. And while Najra behaves in a similar way to the original one, I'm gonna say it's a copy. And the reason he's present there is because Pocketcat wanted another teacher. And who could be more rigid than Najra himself? Caromolar instead is a difficult case. He seems to be a mindless puppet as well, but for some reason when you have the chance to fight him in a battle in Dungeon Nights, he is identical to the original Caromolar. So we can confirm he is the real Caromolar, who gave in like the four main protagonists and completely forgot who he really was and lost himself in the dream. But now you may ask, for what reason Legard is the only one imprisoned? Why doesn't Pocketcat imprison everyone? The reason is very simple. Legard has a strong will. After all, he's the only non-mindless party member that can control his mind against the influence of the miasma in the dungeon. So maybe the dream itself wasn't enough for Legard to forget his goal, and Pocketcat had to imprison him in his own office to be sure he doesn't achieve anything. But the other question you may have, which is even more simpler, is why doesn't Pocketcat just kill all of them instead of managing a whole school? There is a thing you're forgetting. Pocketcat is not allowed from Moon God to interfere. It isn't purely related to the Festival of Termina in the second game. Even in the first game, when you don't want to give him the girl, Pocketcat starts talking to Rare, which will prevent him from trying to kill us. Moon God doesn't want Pocketcat to interfere at all. And in case you didn't notice, Pocketcat is not doing anything in Dungeon Nights. He never forced us to enter in here, and isn't actively trying to kill us or trying to kill the girl. And Legard being imprisoned is technically not interfering because he was already imprisoned, so this doesn't change anything from the previous situation. And it makes sense for Pocketcat trying to avoid rare commands. After all, if you remember, in the second game, in the literal fight we have with him, he asks us which limb can he cut off. So it's gonna be a decision of someone else. He isn't taking decisions.
Armides, your wish is my command.
And also, it fits a lot in Pocketcat character just wanting to play with you and have fun instead of ending everything immediately. After all, he does this even in the dungeon. Even if you give him the girl, he will still follow you in the Cave Dweller village to show you once again the result of your choice in front of you. The girl is gonna stay with him forever, until death separates them. Everything in this dream is present to cause a sense of security and happiness, from the music to the friendly interactions. And the most important part is that there is no end to the prom. There is no prom at all. After you reach the final day, then it's just gonna restart, over and over and over again. And there may also be another reason for which Pocketcat is doing this, but we're gonna talk about it in the future. For now, there is a more important question. We know for sure that at least Enki was able to obtain his S ending. How is this possible if everyone should be stuck in the dream? Well, you may not know this, but there is a way to escape from the dream, thanks to one particular enemy called the Lord of the Flies. Dying against this particular enemy may result in you being carried into the one of the cages in Mahabre, outside of the dream world of Pocketcat and inside of the dungeon of fear and hunger. And you may say, but what do you mean? How are they able to exit from a dream and go back into reality? The point is, the dream of Pocketcat isn't exactly a dream. The concept of the dream is very particular in this universe. The dream is like another layer of reality, and the line that separates layers is so thin that it's almost non-existent. There are a lot of cases of people who, for example, were able to reach Mahabre through dreams. The passages of Mahabre itself, the book, is similar to a dream in our eyes. And even though they're called dreams, the stuff you do in there has physical repercussions in the other world. For example, we are able to collect a cassava from a dream in Fear and Hunger Termina, and we are gonna have it even when we go back to reality. So, even though that's another place created by Pocketcat, there is a way to physically leave it to reach other parts of the dungeon, which is how Lord of the Flies was able to make us unintentionally escape. Now let's go to the next character, Legard. He too is present in Termina, and the ending probably canon for him is ending C. As we already mentioned, Legard has a very strong will, so strong to resist miasma. Probably using this will, he was able to live the dream by himself and he was able to reach the void, not caring about trying to rescue Darcy, as after all, she already fulfilled her role of escorting him to Mahabre. What about the girl then? Who escorts her to the Altar of Darkness? By the point they got stuck into the dream, girl was probably already out of her prison cell, and Nilvan must have had a very crucial role into rescuing her. Being able to enter and exit dreams how she prefers, she is probably also able to create immediate passages to escape the dream, which is probably what allowed the girl to escape. And then, as suggested by Nilvan, Moonless and the girl went together to the Altar of Darkness, point in which the girl decided to leave Moonless behind and entered the mouth of the God of the Depths, becoming the God of Fear and Hunger. What about the Crowmauler? Crowmauler, probably being almost immortal because of the power from God of the Depths and God of Fear and Hunger, was able to just have enough longevity to wait until the events of Termina with Osa in the dungeon. But the saddest part is for the other three characters still remaining. Ragnavaldr never killed the Crowmauler, never finished his quest, and probably got blocked in the dream forever, together with Darcy and Kahara, repeating the same process over and over again. But this makes me wonder, did Pocketcat have another reason to block us there? And then I realized, in the very first interaction in the mines, he will say something that probably majority of players doesn't even remember.
Do you love me, by any chance?
Independently from our answer, he will not be satisfied, as our feelings may not be genuine. But now, in the dream world, he has all the time in the world, just waiting in his office until someone is gonna approach his door to invite him on a date, so that he's gonna be able to effectively test our feelings. Doesn't matter if he has to wait 1 day or 1 month, cause you never escaped the dungeon of fear and hunger. Whew, you have no idea how much work was used into this theory, but I really wanted to do it, so please, if you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, comment below, and let me know if you want me to do more theories in the future. But for now, I was Trapolo94, from Here It's Everything, and I will see you next time.